We're trying to cover good news a little bit more frequently on my show because it's really easy to come up with bad news. Like there's so much of it. So I will crumble under the weight of all the bad news. I'm too stressed. We need less stress. We need fewer responsibilities and fewer problems. Okay? So that's one of the things here is we're going to cover some good news. So in this instance, we've had all these anti-trans laws coming through and passing, and sometimes they're struck down. So today we're talking about a law that was, it's been struck down at least by the Court of Appeals, which does mean that it could go to the Supreme Court. But if the Supreme Court decides not to hear this case, then it will stand that it is Title IX sex discrimination to not allow a trans person in school to participate with the sports team of their gender. Oh my God, it's like I was burpy already and now I'm drinking a beer. So the burpiness is just exponential. Because Title IX specifically refers to discrimination in schooling. So, but that's like in the past when they've said, okay, based on Title IX, it is sex discrimination if you disallow trans people to use the appropriate bathroom at school. You know, like that's because it says you cannot discriminate on the basis of race or religion or sex. And it's been just like numerous times that courts are finding that, yes, discrimination against trans people or against gay people is a type of sex-based discrimination. Therefore, it's not allowable in these places where we have sex-based protections against discrimination. So this one's from West Virginia. A transgender middle schooler in West Virginia, it's been ruled that she cannot be barred from participating in cross-country running and track with other girls, ruling from the U.S. Court of Appeals Fourth Circuit. Like, obviously, there's been a backlash against trans rights all over the country. And so this is good news. It's definitely a good time for it. So, of course, like this Washington Post article is acknowledging that there is nationwide backlash against trans rights that is fueled in large part by claims that trans women would unfairly dominate women's sports, and also that children are being allowed to transition too young. We just did a segment very recently about how transgender women have actually been shown to have a disadvantage in sports. If you're going to say, oh, they have too much hemoglobin, their bones are too dense, their lungs are too functional. Actually, they don't necessarily do very well on those tests compared to cisgender women. And they also don't do very well on those tests compared to cisgender men. So it seems like trans women are at a sports disadvantage no matter which team you were to force them to play on, but it gives them dignity to let them play with women. But yeah, just to say, there's no actual unfair advantage. If you're enjoying this video, hit the like button, maybe subscribe, hit all notifications if you want. Feel free to check out the links in the description. You might find some merch you like, or you can hit up the Patreon to support the content and find free stuff. Obviously, yeah, we keep having conversations about medical treatment, people's pronouns. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fourth Circuit said that broad political disagreements are irrelevant to the specific reality of 13-year-old Becky Pepper Jackson. Is that her real name? That seems irresponsible. Like, I guess it's irresponsible of me to repeat it, but holy, this child has identified as female for 5 years, nearly half her life. The court notes, so since elementary school, she's only participated in girls' sports. She has a birth certificate that identifies her as female, and she's taking puberty pausing medication and will be taking medication to undergo female puberty, which the court said is key to its decision. The court said that this child has never felt the effects of increased levels of circulating testosterone. So the fact that those who do benefit from increased strength and speed provides no justification. Okay, so again, this is not necessarily substantiated. If trans women have been on hormones for 1 year, they start performing worse than even cisgender women. It's not even like they're worse than cis men. They are also performing worse than cis women. Anyway, it does not provide justification for excluding this child from the girls' team. To force her to play on a boys' team or to not play at all would expose her to the same risk of unfair competition and, in some sports, physical danger from which the defendants claim to be shielding cisgender girls. So this judge is pointing out that if you forced this little girl to play on a team against boys, then all of the concerns that you have about how little girls will not fare well if they're playing against boys, then like those things, you're subjecting this little girl to those conditions where you assume that she's not going to do very well and she's not going to be able to participate, which is really validating. Like, I feel like it's not very often that we get that acknowledgement of, you know, like, if you force your trans daughter to cut her hair, like, you're forcing a little girl to cut her hair short. And of course, when you say that, it sounds horrifying. If you're imagining a cisgender girl, oh my God, you forcefully cut your daughter's hair. Like, it's just as messed up, if not more messed up, when you do it to a young trans girl. So it's like, yeah, you're exposing this little girl to the physical dangers that you're claiming to be trying to avoid putting little girls in that danger. Because, yeah, the court says she would be sharing the field with boys who are larger, stronger, and faster than her because of the elevated levels of circulating testosterone she lacks. Sure, whatever. So requiring her to do that would violate federal civil rights law. That does not mean that, quote, we do not hold that government officials are forbidden from creating separate sports teams for boys and girls, or that they lack power to police the line drawn between those teams. The judge added, again, like, I mean, y'all know my official opinion at this point is we need to desegregate all sports, because the fact that you segregate sports in the first place causes women to perform worse. Like, yeah, I mean, when adults are coming after a little girl to try to prevent her, a 13-year-old girl, to prevent her from being able to participate in sports, like, that is just adults using the legal mechanisms to bully a child, a little girl. Oh my God, yawn. This ruling, I will say, to be specific, this ruling does specifically say this does not require federal law to require schools to allow every transgender girl to play on girls' teams, regardless of whether they've gone through puberty and experienced elevated levels of circulating testosterone. Like, I just get hung up on this because we've actually seen that testosterone doesn't make a huge difference in performance compared to things like lifetime sports funding. And also we've seen that, like, of the small differences that it does make, it makes those differences within a year of you being on the medication. So even if you go through male puberty, like, if you're required to have less testosterone than most cis women in order to participate in the sports, which is the case, then if testosterone makes a big difference, then it takes less than a year for any trans woman to be completely competitively able to play against cis women without a concern for an unfair advantage. So, like, I don't like that this just reinforces this. It's a gut feeling. There's a gut feeling that testosterone is the be-all, end-all for sports training, but it isn't. Of course, the Christian conservative group Alliance Defending Freedom backed this law in the first place, and it has backed other laws restricting trans rights. They have indicated that an appeal will be coming because the ruling, quote, undermines equal opportunities and contradicts both biological reality and common sense, says their legal. Yeah, like, biological reality and common sense. Like, well, they are using a certain type of common sense that, like, if you're trying to claim that male puberty is the problem, well, this little girl has never had testosterone in her body. Like, she's been on puberty pausers and she's starting to take estrogen. She, like, literally does not have testosterone. So there's nothing about what you assume makes trans women superior at sports. None of that is happening to this child. Yeah, it's always this like, appeal to common sense fallacy. So it's unclear what the Supreme Court will do. I'll say, you know, we have covered various instances of the Supreme Court, you know, refusing to see some cases or ruling on the broader implications of certain cases. Supreme Court has yet to take a clear stance. Like, we do not know what this court will do when it comes to medical treatment for minors or sports participation for trans people. Like, we have no idea. There's a conservative majority and we don't know. There's like one vote. I think one of the conservative voters tends to vote more like strictly based on the Constitution. But yeah, and it may very well be that the Supreme Court just says we're not going to take this case, which means that it would stand. The Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals ruling that she's allowed to participate would stand. And I think that in this case, they've just said that this is unconstitutional on a blanket statement. They're not saying we're going to put an injunction on this temporarily while we rule on it. Like, this is the ruling. Ooh, okay, so the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals, they handle cases from West Virginia, Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, and South Carolina. And that means that this would have been the court circuit that Gavin Grimm would have taken his case to if it were being appealed up through. And I can't remember how far that case went. But actually, I think that went to the Supreme Court. Yeah? Good Lord, it was in 2016. It's been a few minutes. This was the Fourth Circuit was the first appeals court to recognize a trans student's right to use the bathroom that reflected his gender, which is a ruling that the Supreme Court let stand. This court was also the first to label gender dysphoria as a disability protected under federal law. Now that is going to be struck down because actually at the federal level, the Americans with Disabilities Act has an amendment or a provision in it that explicitly says that gender dysphoria, despite the fact that it is a mental health diagnosis in the DSM, cannot be considered a protected disability under federal law. So this appeals court may have said that, but I'm pretty sure that the actual ADA says otherwise. But anyway, so that court is apparently also considering right now whether the state health plans must cover gender affirming treatments. That'll be interesting to see what happens. So of course the ACLU is in support of this ruling. This guy says no appellate court has ruled against trans athletes on the merits so far. So hey, that's good stuff. I mean, we don't know if this is going to go to the Supreme Court, what they'll say, what they'll potentially do with it. But it's cool that a court that has previously been pretty conservative is now consistently ruling in favor of trans rights. Are my wings uneven? Are my wings uneven? Stop it. Stop being uneven. Oh my God, so many burps. Excuse me. Jennifer in the chat says, this is scary because here's the thing. If they ban hormone therapies, that means anyone with early onset menopause or even diabetes, because insulin is a hormone, they can't get what they need. Yeah, I want to be totally clear. Those people are not at risk. Like, those people are not at risk. When they make gender affirming care illegal, old women on menopause can still get estrogen, and men who can't get their dick hard can still get testosterone therapy. Like, they don't mean it broadly. They might write the law broadly, but they mean for it to target trans people. So like, don't worry. Cis people are fine. True. Love it when biological reality is being appealed to by people who probably couldn't tell you what a telomere was if you put a gun to their head. Well, them making birth control illegal is different from them making hormone replacement therapy for postmenopausal women illegal. You know what I mean? Like, which court? The court that we've been discussing today is the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals, which serves Virginia, West Virginia, North and South Carolina, and one other state, I think. So some pretty conservative parts of the country, TBA. If you keep producing fear in children to not be themselves in a world where there is no reason not to, you will keep creating angry and unstable people who will spend years trying to put themselves back together instead of just being happy, healthy adults as they were meant to be. Feeling like you have to go to court will keep most kids in the closet. Yeah, like if you're sitting there thinking, oh, I'm not allowed to use the bathroom, I would have to become a defendant or a plaintiff of an ACLU case. It's going to keep people from getting medicine in the first place. It's going to keep people from using the bathroom in the first place. Like, yeah, people will literally legislate us onto from hell and back before going to therapy. Imagine. It's not that these people have problems they need to go to therapy over, though. It's we are the scapegoat group for a fascist takeover. Like, and I think that it's important to hit on this because when I share something on Facebook about transphobia and one of my friends on Facebook says like, yeah, people suck. It's like, no, this isn't people. This isn't like a people suck situation. This is the government is using trans people as a scapegoat for Republicans to justify a fascist takeover and power grab. Like, this is not most people. Like, most Republicans even are annoyed that the Republican politicians won't stop talking about this. This is not like a people suck problem. But yes, it's good to have some good news once in a while. There are courts across the country that are increasingly siding with trans students. It sucks that it's so regionally dependent. Obviously, it would be great if we could rely on the Supreme Court to step in and say, yeah, you needed to stop attacking trans youth. Like, let's set a national precedent that trans youth deserve to go to the bathroom. They deserve to go play in sports. They deserve medicine and healthcare. Let's put an end to this. Ooh, it depends where you live. Ooh, we need to move to a different state. Like, let's get over this, maybe, and move on to a new part of our country where we focus on, like, impending climate change. Like, people are having a hard time affording food. Can we maybe focus on the inflation problem instead of focusing on culture war bullcrap that nobody who's trying to survive in this country actually cares about? What a concept. Oh God, y'all. I think that's more or less the end of that segment. Yeah, culture wars BS lost the GOP votes last time around. Now, I will say, They might do the thing where they have to be a little bit crazy around the primaries, but now that we're moving toward the regular election, they've already done the primaries. Maybe they're going to start chilling out, but only temporarily. If they get elected, they're going to do crazy stuff. Lux, don't you see? If we don't elect the people who want to regulate your life out of existence, we will have far too many regulations on Lord Economicus. I forgot. We all serve Lord Economicus in all his wisdom. I forgot. My bad. I need 50 lashings for forgetting that Lord Economicus rules all. Thank you, my patrons, especially Tiago Nascimento, Mersh Rolvog, Amanda B., Michelle Frateroli, Wellington Marcus, Michelle Winter, Danielle McDonald, Suzanne Maynard, DZXN, Spooky Heather Sylvia, Ella V. Nobody, Pasnell Infinity, Jamie Jam, Sojo, Nova, Elizabeth Bartell, Athiette, Kevin Young, Desi Quiche, Celeste, Liam Hodgson, and Mr. Atheist.